Thank you so much, Sarah. I really loved how you mentioned the blue and the green and how we showed those Banawi rice terraces, the beautiful green and the blue ocean.
Yeah, I love that mixed media
amazing.
stuff. Now we've got
Yes.
gold painting. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yes.
Really cool.
Yes. So vibrant, so brilliant.
Yeah.
So let's get to the topic of this week's town hall. Let's see what's in those last 3 chapters of the book, Dick.
Okay. All right, so we're going to be talking about the SMA Way, the style guide for proposal writers. Okay. So as I said at the start of this broadcast, we covered the first 4 of the 7 chapters in the book last week. This week we're going to cover the final 3 chapters. And yes, we are going to get to the writing part.
Great.
Okay.
Can't wait.
Let's start up that PowerPoint presentation, please. All right, so let's have a little recap from last week. What did we learn last week? We learned that you have to have a process. You've got to plan the proposal modules you're going to write before you start writing. After you've read and analysed your annotated outline and all the associated requirements documents, you're then going to design, engineer, and build your proposal module in 5 easy steps. First step is the module specification, or the mod spec, which is the product design requirement document for your proposal module. You're going to list all the applicable RFP requirements, your approach to meeting those requirements, any discriminators of your approach to other bidders, and the features and benefits of your approach.
Right.
Step 2 was the story map, the layout drawing for your proposal module, where page by page you apportion the amount of space you want to allocate to each subtopic and identify and place each figure that's going to go in there. We're going to develop art to tell the story with simple and powerful messages and substantiating rich data and information, creating a memorable experience. And the art is going to be the central structural element of the proposal, while the narrative is just going to inform and provide some nuance.
Great.
The annotated mock-up is going to be our prototype of the proposal module. We're going to start with the story map. We're going to add the completed graphics with art callouts and action captions and additional details in bulleted text supporting the data. And then finally, we're going to have the module draft. We've defined the messages, documented the supporting data and developed graphics. And now we can tell the complete story for your module by expanding those AMU bullets into full text.
Great.
So for more detail, as I said last week, I'll just remind people again, you can go to the Essential Guide for Proposal Development or take the course in our learning management system. And if you're in Todd, just click Learn Online at the top right of the window. That'll take you there.
Cool.
Back to the book. Chapter 2, we talked about proposal templates. You're going to need an attractive, robust template that's going to be compliant with the RFP and represents your brand and the professional quality you aim to convey. The formatting requirements are normally in a section of the RFP that specifies how you're going to respond to the RFP, the proposal preparation instructions, section L in those federal proposals. These requirements will tell you how to structure your response into volumes and sections, and may dictate the page size, margins, minimum font size, and perhaps even the font face, because the world loves Times New Roman. Not really. We discussed different page layouts, like some of the ones you can see here. We've got talking about page orientation, whether it's portrait or landscape, the number of text columns, and then whether that text is going to be left aligned or fully justified. We talked about whether you can use fold-outs. We also discussed one design consideration in a little bit of detail, which is how the ease of readability changes between 2-column and 1-column layouts. Right. So the book goes into detail on a number of those sort of topics.
Right.
Okay, now we talked about creating your content. What's going to go in our annotated mock-up? We're going to have headings. We're going to put, the page allocations that we put in our story map is going to reflect the section numbering and the proposal outline and the RFP.
Okay.
We're going to have subheadings, which is based on a consistent module structure that leads the customer through your understanding of their needs, your solution with its benefits to the customer, and why they should trust you to do the work. We're going to have graphics to tell your story effectively and efficiently. Each graphic is going to have an action caption that tells the customer why they should look at the graphic and what's in there that they need to understand, and then call outs in the text that are going to anchor the graphic to the relevant discussion.
Right.
Okay? You're going to have a thesis statement right up front that describes how we're responding to what's the most important to the customer and why our approach benefits the customer. It also responds to the RFP's instructions and contains a bold assertion with benefits and a proof. If it's the first page of a major section, we might have a focus box, which will be up the top right-hand corner, which is going to have some bold assertion or key claim of our team's superior qualifications or a discriminating feature for performing the program.
Okay.
It's like a newspaper headline. It's going to grab the reader's attention, and it provides bullets of supporting data in a concise manner below that headline. It really is the first thing they're going to read if they flip to that page.
Right.
And of course, it's an AMU. We haven't started writing yet, so we're just going to have some bullets that contain the central message statement for each text paragraph. We also learnt in this section a draft structure for laying out the response to the requirements addressed by the module, so you can go through it.
Right.
All right. In chapter 4, we talked about graphics. This is how to develop proposal graphics to convey the information and the messages of your proposal. And like I said before, graphics are the primary vehicle for conveying information in a proposal and are excellent tools for presenting data. Eassom might have said, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And we talked about that.
That's right.
So one of the things in the SMA process, we define tables, figures, photos, line art, diagrams. They're all proposal graphics.
Right.
And the objective is, and remember this, is to narrate the art, not illustrate the text.
Got it.
We learned about the benefits of different types of graphics, some of which are shown here. For example, on the left we're seeing a photograph. That shows the customer you already have the facilities, the equipment, the people to do the job. The one in the middle is a one-page program overview that can summarize the whole proposal, provide the reader with an instant understanding.
Wow.
That's that ConOps, concept of operation graphics,
Right.
right? And then the one on the right is a schematic drawing. That's far easier to understand than trying to describe that in text when you're talking about how a system is connected together.
Got it.
All right. Okay. Well, hopefully that all sounds familiar. If not, go back and watch last week's town hall.
Right.
Now let's see what's in the remainder of the book. And guess what? We're going to start writing.
Yay.
So your writing style can bias the reader for or against you.
Okay.
First impressions are important in writing, just as they are in live interactions. And it's generally true that when an evaluator starts reading your section, they've decided within the first 10% of the read if they like you and whether they are likely to agree with you. From then on, they're looking for proof to support their position.
Okay.
So your writing style can make the reader a friend, and then they're looking for data to support you. However, if the writing style irritates the reader, then they're looking for the opposite. They're looking for the way to make you lose, okay? It's a subconscious thing. It's all about the evaluator.
Right.
So we want to use a style that makes the reader feel comfortable, find the module easy to read, and interesting to read.
Right.
And you've got to walk that fine line between confidence and arrogance and establish the perception that you are somebody with whom they would really like to work. So to create this feeling of compatibility, focus on making your proposal module easy to score. If it's easy to score, the evaluator will look for ways to give you credit for your response, making your module easily understood and one that corresponds with the RFP increases your evaluated score. So you want to make sure you use words lifted directly from the RFP,
Right.
and then you can create a document that's straightforward to evaluate. So how do we develop this positive relationship with the reader? There are 5 fundamental techniques that help create a positive writing style. We'll talk about some of these on subsequent charts, but in summary, they are... Okay. And I have to get closer because I can't read this. So this is using the present tense. And we're going to pointing out that we design, we build, we test. That's more compelling than saying we will. The next one is using the first person. So it's very conversational, makes for an easy read.
Right.
Okay. You don't have to keep saying, SMA does this, SMA does that, and say we do this, we
More
do
personal.
that.
Yeah.
Okay. Be positive. Stating things in a positive content and not using conditional statements.
Right.
May is not a good word. Okay,
Yes.
you want to be positive. Avoiding stilted phrases, conversational writing style, quantified, not rife with expletives.
Right.
Nothing worse. Expletives? Superlatives. Close.
Those two.
I know. We'll put that in the blooper reel. I can't read. Is the writing very small? Superlatives. So, you know, that sort of boasting about what you can do.
Yes,
It's
right.
no good.
Right, no good.
Okay. And then finally, using active voice. Active voice is much more direct, much more positive, much more confident
Yes.
than using passive voice. Okay,
Right.
so those
Makes
are
sense.
5 simple keys to writing style. Okay. Now, okay, let's talk about this. So, let's make the message clear to the reader. There are several things we can do to achieve that. So the first thing is being specific. Good proposals are data rich. They deal in particulars and present details that matter. Using the customer's language. Make it easy for the customer to find your responses to their requirements.
Yes.
Don't worry about using little words. You know, we'll see later in another slide I want to show you that little words are very powerful.
They are.
Big words just make proposals hard to evaluate.
Right.
You know, it's
True.
not a contest on big words. Let's avoid using cliches like the plague. They're old hat.
True.
Okay. They don't add anything to it.
Yeah.
Be careful when using acronyms. Acronyms really are the bane of proposals. You know, don't make up new ones. There's already enough probably in the RFP. They get very confusing, particularly if you're in the engineering, technology, that kind of thing.
So true.
And they're basically speed reading accidents. So whenever the evaluator is reading it, they come across an unfamiliar acronym. Now they've got to stop, go figure out what it means. Okay.
Right.
So pages that are loaded with acronyms are very foreboding. Challenge yourself, is that acronym necessary? If you're using the full version, the spelled out version repeatedly, then, you know, using the acronym makes sense because you're going to save space, becomes easier to read than a long string of words appearing over and over again.
Right.
Otherwise, spell it out and do not use the acronym. If you're only using it once, why bother?
Right.
Because you're not achieving anything, okay?
Makes sense.
And certainly don't use anything internal to you as the bidder, because the customer's not going to understand those.
That's true.
Usual rules, the first time you use it, you need to expand it. Thereafter, you can use the acronym. But some acronyms actually don't need to be expanded if it could be distracting if you do. For example, like NASA, do we really need to
No.
talk about the North American, you know?
Right.
No, just use NASA. We all know what
We all
NASA
know,
is,
yes.
right? So some things we just don't need. NATO, for example, is another one. We don't
Right.
need to. Okay. And then finally, omitting needless words. So you can go through and cut a lot of stuff out, okay? Just like a drawing shouldn't have unnecessary lines, or a machine doesn't need unnecessary parts. Our text doesn't need to have unnecessary words.
Right.
You can do a lot of editing, cut stuff out. Using simple language, make proposal easier to read, helps you keep within the page count.
Right.
There's a lot in there that people, I don't know what it is, people write a certain way, thinking it sounds more, you know, effective
Proper,
or,
right.
or professional, whatever. A couple of my favourites. If you say in order to, you can just say to.
That's right.
It doesn't add anything. Period of time can just be period.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
At this time can be currently.
Yes.
You know, so if you want an example of words that don't need to be there, pretty much watch any press conference from
Yes.
something that's just happened where people get up, whether they're state or local officials or
Right.
law enforcement.
Yeah.
You'll find that the way they speak is full of unnecessary words.
Yeah.
We don't need that in our proposal.
That's true.
Okay. So let's look a little bit more about the customer's language. So when we're writing a proposal, we want to make it evaluator friendly, so we want to use the customer's language. Don't try and improve on the solicitation's choice of words. If the RFP says past experience, then don't write past performance,
Right.
because they're looking for the words past experience, right? So if their wording's a little ambiguous and you want to make it better, don't. It may be tempting, but don't.
Right.
Okay. It's also important to embed keywords from the solicitation in your headings and text to give them a road signs that makes it easier for them to find the answers they need to score the proposal. They're scanning for these words, so use them. And make sure you use their lexicon. For example, this is anybody who's been through SMA training will know this one. You know, the author used the term secure the building.
Oh, yes.
But depending on who's reading it, it could
Right.
mean a different thing. So to the army, it means they will occupy it so no one else can enter. The Navy will assume it means turn off the lights and lock the doors. To the Air Force, it means take out a 3-year lease with an option to buy. Whereas the Marines will think it means to assault the building, capture it with suppressive fire and close combat, and then defend it with their lives. Mentioned earlier about never being afraid of using some small words. Here's some very small words that actually have a huge amount of meaning, okay? You know, and we use big words because we want to sound educated, but we fail to communicate when we do that.
Sure.
So we're talking about this transition from writing for, you know, standard technical publications and scholastic documents to writing good proposals.
Right.
So here's some words. These all mean a lot, just for such a small word. Dawn.
Right.
How about this one? Love, right? There's a huge amount behind that.
Yeah.
What else have we got? Life. Death. Peace. And war. God. And hope. All very small words with huge amounts of meaning behind them.
Right.
So the objective is to actually help communicate, convey your message. You know, you're not trying to impress the reader.
Right.
There's some other things in there. How many times have we seen utilize when we can just use use?
Right.
Utilize doesn't add anything, doesn't have any extra meaning. So, and it's another 4 letters, right? So the techniques we discussed in this chapter for improve your writing style make a big difference to the reader. These techniques will help you develop a relationship with the evaluator and make your story clear. And there has to be iterative reviews and edits for style by you and the volume lead or proposal manager to make it successful. Winning proposals are easy to evaluate, easy to understand, and a very pleasant read. And a good writing style goes a long way to achieving those goals.
Right.
So how does your proposal module score against this checklist? Does the section respond to the RFP and implement the appropriate elements of win strategy? Does your section sell? Did you prove every claim? And then will the reader be able to answer these questions? What are you offering? How is it better than somebody else? How are you going to do it? And how is that better? Why should they believe you?
Right.
Okay. All right. That's chapter 5. Chapter 6 is actually a reference section.
Okay.
It's an alphabetical guide to punctuation, spelling, and the use of the English language. If you are used to having a Strunk and White or a CMOS or one of those sort of style guides, that's going to have a lot of stuff in it. What we tried to do in this was really to just have the key things that are important to proposals that you might use, and so we're not trying to cover everything that's in one of those existing style guides because that would be silly, really.
Yes.
And we'd probably get sued for copyright.
Sure.
So that's really what's in there. There's a lot of stuff in there. It covers topics like abbreviations, apostrophes, currency dates, dashes, diacritics, fractions, geographic coordinates, hyphenation, names of places and things, non-breaking spaces, parentheses, semicolons, serial commas, good old Oxford commas, SI units, trademarks, units of measurement, and many more. So there's a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah.
And then if there's something that, is a particular thing like a code, something like, for example, a degree sign. How do we put in a degree sign? You'll find that in there as the shortcut for Word. There's also the ASCII code for putting that in, and the Unicode. So if you're not using Word and you're using InDesign or something like that, then that's how you generally put those in. Okay, but it's full of stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it also has in it some reference tables. And we have, for example, here, like the Greek alphabet, how you actually enter those, how you use them, the SI units, particularly as an engineer, originally I find that irritating when people don't use SI units properly.
Yeah.
So let's be professional, let's show how professional we are and use them correctly. But there's the US units in there, imperial units, things like that. Okay. So that's the reference section. That's what I
Okay.
think you normally expect to be in a style guide, is
Right.
that kind of stuff, right?
True.
Okay. And then finally, the last chapter is the 7 C's. Now, 7 C's is something we developed at SMA back in like 2003, 2004. I was sort of part of that
Wow.
with people at the time, and I still have a little piece of like a credit card thing size on my screen at home, so I can remember the 7 C's when I'm writing. So let's go through the 7 C's. There is compliant. Does your proposal meet or exceed all the customer's requirements detailed in the RFP? Non-compliance is pretty much the easiest way to get eliminated from the competition.
Right.
And even if the RFP doesn't ask for a compliance matrix, maybe it's a good idea to put one in.
Right.
Okay. Is it credible? Does your proposal clearly show that you can perform the scope of the proposal requirements? Have you detailed your previous experience and successes with the same or similar work? You know, get some pull quotes from previous customers to prove it. If your solution doesn't exist yet, show drawings or photographs of prototypes just to prove you're nearly there.
Right. Makes sense.
Is it compelling? Does your proposal inspire the customer to want to select you as the winner? Will the customer want to buy your solution or service? And the style of writing can have a marked influence on the evaluator. So make sure that you highlight the benefits and differentiators in an easy-to-read manner.
Yes.
Is it correct? Is your proposal accurate? And one of the things you can do to help here is maintaining a so-called wall of truth, and that can either be physical or virtual, but it's going to have common data such as key dates, performance measurements, quantities, company names, org charts, key personnel, that kind of thing.
Right.
To make sure you're consistent across the whole proposal. Is it consistent across all the deliverables, all the different volumes? Another easy way of getting eliminated from the competition is to have inconsistencies between the volumes, or even worse, inconsistencies within the sections in a volume.
Right.
Okay, so make sure you keep all your proposal baselines, technical management costs synchronized throughout the proposal development. It's really quite easy as you're developing the solution and program plan for how you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Unless you have that communication between all the people on the team, you get this baseline drift, and next thing you know, the cost volume doesn't agree with the management volume, doesn't agree with the technical volume.
Right.
Okay, so you're going to lose. Let's see, what's next? Is it concise? Is it brief and to the point? And so, you know, chapter 4 of the book talks about using the minimum number of simple words to present a clear, easy to read story that doesn't send the evaluator to sleep.
Wake up, Dick.
Okay, sorry. Is it clear? Will the customer understand the proposal? It's essential you use independent reviewers, pink teams, red teams, people that are not on the team, people that don't have daily contact with the team. If they don't think it's clear, they're going to let you know. Okay, so that's super important. And I'm going to add 2 more things to this. Proposal aphorisms. Proposals are scored, not read. That doesn't mean you have to not write it well. You've got to write it in a way that makes it easy to evaluate and doesn't bore them in the process. But they are going to be looking for specific responses to your requirements, and so you've got to make it easy for them to evaluate you and score you.
Yes.
And remember, they're buying benefits, not features. So the solution might have some great features, but if those features are not beneficial to the customer, they might as well not be there.
Right.
You know, like, for example, blind spot sensors on a car are features that improve the benefit, have the benefit of improving safety.
Right.
Right? So you don't reverse into somebody walking behind you. But red paint on a car is just a feature. It's not a benefit.
Right.
Okay. It might be to you, but it's not really a benefit. Okay. One of the things in the book, if you have the book, you'll find a QR code in the book, and you can actually download this as a poster that you can put up in a proposal development center or in your office or wherever you want to put it. So,
Right.
as it says there. Okay. And now you can actually read this in the SMA Knowledge Center.
Okay.
Here we go. If you go to private.samawins.com, which is a common portal where you get links to both SharePoint and to Todd,
Yes.
you can go there, click on the Knowledge Center button, okay, and then when you're in there, click on Books down at the bottom of the page, and that'll take you to a books page. You select the book you want, and then you have a flip book. You can flip through the books. They all have a disclaimer page on them, but basically you can flip through and read the book. So you have to obviously be logged into to SharePoint using your SMA email address and password. Okay. Of course, you can also buy the book on Amazon. The easiest way to get to it rather than searching is if you just go to our public website, go to smawins.com, click on resources, and then click on books. You'll actually then have a link to Amazon. You just order the book. Simple as that. Yeah, super convenient. Okay. The other thing about the book is, unlike the other books, which are just great paperbacks, we've actually got user-friendly book packaging here. So that's cool.
Yes.
All right. So this is actually called Half Canadian. And so what does half Canadian mean? Well, it's actually spiral bound. Okay.
Okay.
So can we go back to the... There we go. So it's spiral bound, which makes it nice and easy to flick through. The back page is a bookmark that you can put anywhere in the book. Okay. And it's called Half Canadian because the spiral is like half embedded in the back. Full Canadian would be completely covered.
Oh.
The things you learn when you're writing books.
Did not know
Who
that.
knew? Who knew? All right, there we are. Yeah, so that's part 2 of the book.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Dick. Thanks for going through the rest of the SMA way, Dick. This is really good reference for proposal writers. Last week's presentation was so well received. I personally got comments from my clients and SMA associates. So here's a recent review on Amazon. We're going to pull it up real quick. Wow, look at that.
That was a great review.
Yes.
I was quite chuffed, as we would say, with that review.
So, it says a greatly needed reference book, reviewed in the United States on August 3. So, Mr. Eassom's book provides a how-to book for proposal writers, covering all aspects of how to respond to RFPs. It is thorough, but it is not overwhelming, and it is easy to use. I wish such a how-to-do-it were available previously. Although titled the SMA Way, I find it equally applicable to other companies' approaches to proposal writing.
That's pretty good, isn't it?
Yes.
I was super pleased with that review.
So, wow, look at that chat. I can see that today's talk is also very popular.
Yeah, you're right, Patty. We had some great questions last week, and let's see how many questions we got this week.
We got
some
quite
here.
a few.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay.
Great. So, Liz says, Dick, is it writers or authors, and why?
I think we can use those words interchangeably.
Okay.
But I mean, the writer just suggests all you're doing is writing, but an author suggests, I don't know, at least to me, that you've got somebody who's working on it, on the story, and they're creating the graphics and how the graphics are going to help tell the story, and that sort of thing. So it's not just writing.
Okay, makes sense.
Okay.
And Alan Berman asks, are foldouts or large format graphics still used with electronic submission of proposals?
Yes, indeed. In fact, we did one. We helped a client recently for a space development agency, and actually a proposal. And in the RFP, there was a requirement to submit a ConOps type graphic that the government calls an OV1, which is an overview graphic one. And that was going to be on an 1117 foldout. So yeah, even though it's submitted electronically in PDF, you still have those big foldouts.
Right, that's great.
Yeah.
So AJ says, in a typical proposal, let's say a 45-day response time, how many days are actually spent writing?
That's a good question. Thanks for that curveball, AJ. I think you'd have to look at the overall thing, but depends on the size of the proposal, depends how many writers you have. So in a 45-day proposal, probably, I would think, 7 to 8 days, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, because a lot of it's all planning.
Yeah, right.
Right, so you're doing your mod spec and story map and AMU, and then when you finally actually get to writing and honing the text, it's probably 7 to 8 days.
That's the easier part.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, Sophie asks, do we have a list of words to avoid using in a proposal?
Yes, there are actually. The book has in the reference section a list of words that you, I won't say shouldn't use, but words you can replace with better words.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, yes, there are some words that it depends. You know, we always have this thing with certain customers that say, "Oh, you can't use words like ensure because all the legal people get upset." You know, "Oh, you can't say that," or guarantees and things.
Yeah.
We had a client years ago that didn't like to use those words, but you know, that's their thing.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
But yeah, I think we covered things like being positive and not saying may or should or perhaps, you know, that sort of stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Are they completely verboten? I wouldn't say no, but there's better ways you can do it.
Right. Okay, so Peter Shermans asks, how do you avoid making this a technical report as opposed to a sales document that encourages the customer to invest in our offering?
Good question, Peter. I think this comes down to how you tell the story. I mean, a technical report, you know, like I said, as an engineer, I've written many technical reports. They're very factual, they're very logical, but they're not a thrilling read. I think that's, you know, we can easily say that, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that we're using graphics that aren't necessarily graphics that are just putting over technical detail, they're putting in the features and benefits of your approach, and they're helping you tell the story as part of that arc of the story. And then your text is really just helping to fill in the details, so to speak. And I think that's the important thing is it's really about features, benefits, differentiators, the why us,
Right.
minimizing the risk, the perceived risk to the customer, things like that.
Right. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, Lexi asks, is there a software package that is available to test for each of the 5 keys to a positive proposal style? If not, SMA should develop it?
Well, they should, yeah. If you're using Word, I must admit that and I know some people are very familiar with Grammarly, which is a plugin that works with a lot of apps. Actually, I just use the features that are in Word. So the latest versions of Word, if you use the editor function, that'll take you through spelling errors, obviously, grammar errors. But the key is setting Word up in the proofing options to make sure you're testing not just for grammar, but grammar and style. And so in the style options, you can say, please show me where I'm not using active voice.
Right.
Please show me where, you know, I'm not using first person and things like that.
That's
okay.
good.
So that can really help you. I've been using it, you know, I help write the proposals that go out to our clients, the custom ones, and I use it every time before we send those out to make sure that I'm not doing that. Because it's you know, you can slip into it if you're not careful.
True. That's useful.
What else we got?
This is from Graham Browning. What do you do when the team absolutely insists on using a lot of acronyms?
It depends. If they're acronyms that are used by the customer, if the customer's acronyms, that's not so bad.
Yeah.
If they're your acronyms, that's different.
Yeah.
Okay. And like I said, you need to go through and say, if I'm only using the acronym once, why?
Yeah.
Unless it's an acronym that's so obvious, like NASA or NATO or one of those, right? You know, even DOD. Do I really need to spell out DOD if I'm writing a proposal that's to the DOD?
No.
No, not really. So, you know, things like that.
Right.
But I think having acronyms that are, you know, let's take an SMA acronym, COMPASS, right? Now I'm going to get this wrong, but it's the cost and schedule. No, I've already messed it up. COMPASS, cost management, planning and scheduling solution.
Yes.
That's it. That's it. Okay, that's a mouthful.
Yes, it is.
I can remember it properly. Thank you, Jacques, off scene, helping me with that. But maybe in that case, I could introduce it once and say COMPASS, and then I've got the customer latched into what COMPASS is.
Yeah.
It's a proprietary thing, okay? But if you're going to use, and I've seen this in other things where people start you're putting in acronyms for things that really don't need to have acronyms or aren't even recognized by the profession or that market as acronyms, you're just making it harder, particularly if you end up with 2 acronyms that have 2 different meanings within a proposal. I actually seen that. That recent one we did had things in like that. And I went, oh, that's going to be confusing.
Yes, ambiguous.
Yeah.
True. Okay, Liz asks, Dick, do you use the read aloud feature as a way to see how easily understood the writing is? Many people read silently to themselves, so it would make sense, right?
It might do. I personally do not. I rely on the editor, but I could see how that could be a benefit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Each to their own.
And the last one's from Jacques. Is there a minimum number of times a phrase in a proposal section that we can use as a guide to decide if we should create an acronym?
That's a good question. That's a good question. Well, like I say, same rules apply. Is it something that the business understands, that domain, that market area understands, or is it something that's internal to us? If it's something that's internal to us, which would be a pain to have to keep writing, then maybe it makes sense, like Compass. However, again, how often do you need to reintroduce the acronym?
Right.
Right. So, if I'm using it 10 times in a 100-page volume, do I assume that by the time the guys got to page 50, the evaluator that they remember what it meant, or do I need to reintroduce it again?
Yes.
And so little things like that. So I don't think there's an easy answer.
Right.
You just have to look at it and say, what's the right way to do that? So there we are. Thanks for all the questions, everybody.
Yes,
great
thanks.
questions, great response. Appreciate it.
Well, this coming weekend is the Labor Day holiday. Yay. Enjoy your long weekend, and we'll see you all next week for our ever-popular business development opportunities.
Yes, well done, Dick.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks very much.
Patty, well done.
Thanks.
That was an excellent presentation.